दिख नहीं रहा है यूट्यूब पे लाइव, यहाँ पे नहीं दिख रहा है, आ गया आ गया। हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू द चैनल ऑफ यूविल क्लासेस। कल इवनिंग में हम लोगों ने स्टडी किया था कि भाई ट्रांसफरर की बुक्स में एंट्रीज कैसे पास करनी है। आई होप आप लोगों ने थोड़ा बहुत रिवीजन उसका कर लिया होगा। ओके, बाय द वे एक खुशखबरी है आप लोगों के लिए, आपकी जो एग्जाम्स है वो 8 दिसंबर के बदले 11 दिसंबर से शुरू होने वाली है। आई होप आप लोगों को न्यूज़ ऑलरेडी मिल ही चुके होंगे कि अभी वो 11 दिसंबर से शुरू होने वाली है। सो 3 दिन ज़्यादा मिलेंगे आप लोगों को, बट अभी एग्जाम्स के टाइम पे तो 3 दिन भी 30 दिन जैसे है, तो आई होप यू विल टेक फुल बेनिफिट ऑफ दैट। एंड कल जैसा आपको कहा था कि भाई आज हम एक क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करेंगे जिसमें हमें एंट्रीज पास करनी है ट्रांसफरर की बुक्स में। आप लोग स्क्रीन के ऊपर ये देख सकते हैं यहाँ पे कि एमएस यूनिवर्सिटी का जो आपका 2023 फरवरी का पेपर है, रीसेंट सबसे रीसेंट पेपर, उसमें सेकंड क्वेश्चन ये पूछा है 15 मार्क के लिए। तो वही हम आज पूरा का पूरा सॉल्व करने वाले हैं। खाली एक छोटा सा डिफरेंस है, एग्जाम में ये क्वेश्चन ट्रांसफरी कंपनी की एंट्रीज के हिसाब से पूछा था। इन एग्जाम दिस क्वेश्चन वाज आस्क्ड फ्रॉम द पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ अकाउंटिंग इन द बुक्स ऑफ ट्रांसफरी कंपनी, but we will solve this question today passing the entries and doing the accounting from the point of view of transferor companies. एक होमवर्क भी मैं आपको दूंगा, एक्स एंड वाई दो ट्रांसफरर कंपनीज है जैसे वोडाफोन एंड आइडिया थी। सो वन ऑफ द कंपनीज बुक्स आई विल सॉल्व राइट नाउ लाइव। पेन पेपर आप लोग निकाल लीजिए, एंड दूसरी की बुक्स में, वाई कंपनी की बुक्स में जो है, यू पीपल ट्राई द सेम अकाउंटिंग ऑन योर ओन एट होम। ये लाइव स्ट्रीम खत्म होने के बाद जो स्क्रीन पे आपको क्वेश्चन दिख रहा है उसकी सॉफ्ट कॉपी मैं नीचे लिंक में डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में दे दूंगा, वहां से आप क्लिक करके इसको डाउनलोड कर सकेंगे। ओके, एंड जो वाई कंपनी की बुक्स में है उसकी अकाउंटिंग एंट्रीज में कल वहीं डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में दे दूंगा, पहले आप खुद ट्राई कर लीजिए। कल वहां से उसका सॉल्यूशन भी आप डाउनलोड करके चेक कर सकते हैं कि आपने करेक्टली सॉल्व किया है या नहीं। सो बिना टाइम वेस्ट करे लेट्स स्टार्ट विद टुडेज सेशन। कहीं पे भी आप लोगों को कुछ कंफ्यूजन है तो आप कमेंट बॉक्स में लिख सकते हैं, बता सकते हैं जो भी आपका कंफ्यूजन है। आई विल ट्राई टू सॉल्व दोस डाउट्स। लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द क्वेश्चन। मैं क्वेश्चन पढ़ रहा हूं, क्वेश्चन आपके स्क्रीन में है ऑलरेडी, तो आप लोग उस पर ध्यान रखिएगा क्या क्वेश्चन है। देखिए, see the following are the balance sheet of X Limited and Y Limited as on 31st March 2022. now liabilities में दिया हुआ है इक्विटी शेयर्स ऑफ ₹10 each 17,50,000 and 8 lakh। सिक्योरिटी प्रीमियम एक्स लिमिटेड की बुक्स में है 1,57,000। जनरल रिजर्व इन द बुक्स ऑफ एक्स लिमिटेड 6 lakhs। कैपिटल रिजर्व इन द बुक्स ऑफ वाई लिमिटेड 18,000। प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस अकाउंट इन द बुक्स ऑफ एक्स लिमिटेड 2,50,000। 8% debentures in the books of Y Limited 2,75,000. Sundry creditors are 3 lakh and 1,30,000. In assets we have land and building 2,97,000 only in the books of X Limited. Plant and machinery, furniture, stock, debtors, cash at bank. Now on 1/4/2022 X Limited and Y Limited agreed to amalgamate. See here, X Limited and Y Limited agreed to amalgamate and form a new company XY Limited. So yesterday we studied, okay, yesterday we discussed transferee and transferor companies. Now X Limited and Y Limited are like Vodafone and Idea in the example I gave you yesterday. They are going into liquidation. So X Limited and Y Limited here are transferor companies. They are going into liquidation. And XY Limited over here is transferee company. That is the new company, purchasing company which is going to be formed. So exam में बच्चों you have to take care, read it carefully in the last sentence. that accounting is asked in whose books. If you are asked accounting in the books of X Limited or Y Limited, that means the journal entry is what we studied yesterday. You have to do the journal entries and ledger account in the books of transferor companies. And if you are asked the accounting in the books of XY Limited, that means you have to do the entries in the books of transferee company that we have yet to study. आगे के सेशंस में मैं वो कवर करूंगा. Now the consideration is agreed at rupees 20 lakhs and rupees 10 lakhs. Okay, 20 lakhs and rupees 10 lakhs for X Limited and Y Limited. Means X Limited के लिए परचेज कंसिडरेशन है 20 lakhs, आप लोग स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं. Y Limited के लिए परचेज कंसिडरेशन है 10 lakhs. You can see on the screen. The entire amount is payable by XY Limited in the form of its fully paid equity shares of rupees 10 each at par. Means this 20 lakhs, how will it be given by XY Limited to X Limited? 20 lakhs divided by 10, it will be given in the form of 2 lakh equity shares of rupees 10 each. Same manner, how will this 10 lakhs be given to Y Limited? 10 lakhs divided by 10, 1 lakh equity shares of rupees 10 each will be issued to Y Limited. The debentures of Y Limited will be issued equivalent value of 10% debentures in X Limited. This means the debentures are taken over. इसका क्या मतलब है बच्चों? Debentures of Y Limited will be issued equivalent value of 10% debentures in XY Limited, means debentures are taken over. In the books of transferor company, it has no relevance. I repeat, in the books of transferor company, it has no relevance, because in the books of transferor company, we pass the entry when liability is not taken over and is to be paid by X Limited or Y Limited itself. This will have effect, but if the journal entries are asked in the books of XY Limited. What we are going to solve today are the journal entries in the books of X Limited and Y Limited, transferor companies. So no relevance from that point of view. Expenses of amalgamation amounting to 17,500. Again, see that, which are borne by XY Limited. Who is going to bear it? Transferee company. So entry will also be passed in the books of XY Limited only. This will again have no effect in the books of X Limited or in the books of Y Limited. If you all remember, yesterday we have done this. You all can see over here. I made you write that for liquidation expenses will pass the entry only if it is borne by transferor companies. Whereas here the liquidation expenses or amalgamation expenses are going to be borne by which company? Transferee company XY Limited. So in the books of X Limited or Y Limited, no accounting effect will come for the same. Students of this particular year, I must say, were extremely lucky. So easy question has been asked in 2023 exams for 15 marks. No complications. No agreed value of assets given. No agreed value of liabilities given. This is a very good question to understand the entries we did yesterday in the books of transferor companies. What you do is, आप लोग पेन पेपर निकाल लीजिए. अभी फॉर्मेट बनाने का टाइम नहीं होगा. So you just write the journal entries as we are discussing. You are asked pass necessary journal entries in the books of X Limited and Y Limited. अभी हम लोग लाइव सेशन में खाली X Limited की बुक्स की एंट्री देखेंगे. Y Limited's entries and ledger accounts you try on your own. Tomorrow I will upload the link of the solution in the description box, so you can click on that link and verify whether your solution is correct or not. Also, you are asked to prepare necessary ledger accounts. Now, which are these necessary ledger accounts? See, you make a rough format. Realization account center में 2 lines करके आप लोग बना लीजिए rough format, so that you can start solving the question along with me. So journal you make for 2 pages. Realization account you can make approximately half a page format. Equity shareholders account you can make a format of around 7-8 lines. Cash and bank account, you make a format of around 8 to 10 lines. Equity shares of XY Limited, again you make a format of around 5-6 lines. And XY Limited accounts, again you make a format of around 5 to 6 lines. मैं दोबारा से बता रहा हूँ, रफ फॉर्मेट छोटा सा एक आप लोग बना लीजिए so that you can understand how the questions are to be solved. One page format you make for journal entries. Just give the heading journal entries and along with me you can start solving as if in rough. Journal के नीचे below the journal you make a format of realization account, half a page. I hope you all would have done by this. Below that you make a small format of equity shareholders account, 8 to 10 lines. Below that you make a small format of cash or bank account, 8 to 10 lines. Okay, realization account, equity shareholders account, cash and bank account, 3 ledger accounts. Below that, equity shares of XY Limited, 7-8 lines. And below that, XY Limited, that is a transferee company account, for 7 to 8 lines. So total you have to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ledger accounts format you make in rough. Okay, let's start the accounting. Okay, now see, we studied yesterday that X Limited is going into liquidation. So very first 6 closing entries will be passed. Okay, closing entries you all can see here. We discussed yesterday. First entry is to close the assets. All these assets will be closed and transferred to realization account. Okay, second entry will be passed to close the liabilities. These 2 liabilities will be closed and transferred to realization account. Third entry will be passed to close equity share capital, that will be transferred to equity shareholders account. Fourth entry will be passed for this reserves. In the books of X Limited right now we are passing the entry. Y Limited you are going to try on your own. So you will see there are only 2 reserves, security premium general reserve and this third one, profit and loss account. So these things will again be transferred to equity shareholders account. There is no preference share capital in this particular question. So first let us pass those closing entries. Okay, and before that, whichever ledger accounts we are making, realization, equity shareholders, cash and bank account will have the opening balance. All of you see here how much is the balance already there in cash and bank account in the books of X Limited, 1,50,000. You all can see that. So that you all record as opening balance of X Limited. In cash and bank ledger account, you all write down on the debit side. Dates column are not required actually in this ledger account. So ledger accounts without the date columns only will be sufficient. To balance brought down. Over here will record that amount of 1,50,000. Okay. I repeat, cash and bank account, there is an opening balance. In the balance sheet you all can see there is a balance of 1,50,000. So in cash and bank account you all write the opening balance on the debit side, to balance brought down 1,50,000. Now first 6 closing entries will pass. So first entry we have to pass to close assets and transfer to realization account. Okay, what is the entry? Assets have debit balance. To close them we will reverse and credit. Okay, all these assets, land and building, plant and machinery, etc. And which account we will debit, because we are transferring to realization account? Realization account will be debited. So first entry will be, all of you write down, realization account debit, and then 2, all the assets we will record. So very first you all can see is to land and building, 2,97,000. To land and building account, 2,97,000. Then 2, all of you can see below that, plant and machinery, 12,50,000. All of you keep in mind, right now we are passing in the books of X Limited, so only these amounts have to be taken into consideration. Okay, only X limited's amounts have to be taken into consideration. So to plant and machinery with 12,50,000, then after plant and machine, you all can see there is furniture. Okay, over here there is furniture of 1,60,000. So to furniture account, 1,60,000. I hope all of you are writing it along with me. Then you can see there is stock. Okay, over here you can see there is stock of 8,50,000. So to stock, 8,50,000. Then after stock, to stock, not your stock. Then after stock, you all can see there is debtors of 3,50,000. Can you all see on the screen? Here you have debtors of 3,50,000. So two debtors, 3,50,000. And lastly, even this cash and bank. See, in this question, what is happening? Pure merger. X limited, Y limited going into liquidation, forming a new company, XY limited. It's a pure merger. And you all can see amalgamation and liquidation expenses are also paid by XY limited. Because it's a pure merger, even cash and bank will be taken over. When they say they agree to amalgamate and form a new company, it means all its assets and liabilities will be taken over, including cash and bank. So even cash and bank, though we have recorded the opening balance, but it will be transferred to realization account, that is 1,50,000. So to realization account, here you'll record, sorry, to cash and bank account, 1,50,000. Now, total of all this is already available in the balance sheet, 30,57,000. You all can see here. This total is 30,57,000. So directly that amount we have to debit to realization account because all these assets have been taken in consideration. So over here we'll record 30,57,000. So this will be the first journal entry. Now posting we will do simultaneously in the ledger account. So realization account will record all this on the debit side. I repeat, date columns are not required. So realization account you all write on the debit side. To land and building account, now land and building account is with 2,97,000. Then we have to plant and machinery account, 12,50,000. Then we have to furniture account, 1,60,000. Then we have to stock account, 8,50,000. Then we have to debtors account, 3,50,000. Then we have to cash and bank account, 1,50,000. So this posting is done in realization account on debit side. Okay, just 1 minute. Now, okay. Now, only cash and bank ledger account we are making. So in cash and bank ledger account also, to cash and bank account means the entry will be coming on the credit side. You record the opposite account by realization account with 1,50,000. So what will happen? Cash and bank account immediately gets closed. Now see, I recommend that you always make cash and bank account. This is a simple question. Entire purchase consideration is paid in the form of equity shares only. But you may come across such questions where in purchase consideration some cash is also given to the transferor company, and transferor company pays its liabilities, pays to preference shareholders or even equity shareholders cash and bank. So generally you make a habit of making cash and bank account. If no other transactions of cash and bank are there, then it is automatically getting closed. So first entry is done. Now second entry, we have to close the liabilities. You all can see over here that 8% debentures and sundry creditors. But all of you can see over here, debentures are only in the books of Y Limited. All of you can see that. So we have to close only one liability, that is sundry creditors with rupees 3 lakhs. Now, liability has what balance? Liability has credit balance. Creditors have credit balance 3 lakh rupees. So to close that, we will reverse and debit, means we'll be doing creditors account debit. Okay. With what amount? 3 lakh rupees. Creditors are 3 lakh and will transfer that to realization account, with the amount of 3 lakhs. Okay, all of you can see over here. So second entry of closing the liabilities is done. Now to realization account, means in realization account we'll write this on the credit side by creditors account, opposite account by creditors account with the amount of 3 lakhs. So the posting of creditors is done in realization account on the credit side. Okay, all of you can see that. Now third closing entry is for equity share capital. All of you can see here we have marked it equity share capital of this. Equity share capital of 17,50,000 will be closed and transferred to equity shareholders account. Now equity share capital again has a credit balance. So to close that, the entry will be equity share capital account debit. Okay, equity share capital account debit with 17,50,000 and will transfer it to equity shareholders account. So to equity shareholders account 17,50,000. Okay. Now equity shareholders account we are already making over here. So in equity shareholders, this posting will come on the credit side. To equity shareholders, we credit that, so it will come on the credit side by equity share capital account with the amount of 17,50,000. Right? So three closing entries are done. Now if we go further, you all can see the fourth closing entry. What preference shares capital is the fourth closing entry we studied yesterday. But in this question, we don't have preference share capital. So straight away, fourth closing entry, what we will pass will be for security premium account, 1,50,000, general reserve account, 6 lakh rupees, and profit and loss account, 2,50,000. All these three belong to equity shareholders. They'll be closed and transferred to equity shareholders account. They all have credit balance. So security premium account debit with 1,57,000. Then after security premium account, we have general reserve with rupees 6 lakhs. So general reserve account debit with rupees 6 lakhs. And then after general reserve, we have profit and loss account with 2,50,000. So profit and loss account debit with 2,50,000. And this will be transferred to equity shareholders account. To equity shareholders account with the total amount, you all can see 6 lakhs, 8 lakhs, 9 lakh, 10 lakhs, 7,000. Okay, 1,57,000 plus 6 lakhs, that is 7,50,000 plus 2,50,000, that is 10 lakhs 7,000. Now to equity shareholders account. So in equity shareholders account, all these three will be recorded on the credit side by security premium account with rupees 1,57,000. Then by general reserve account with rupees 6 lakhs, and by profit and loss account with rupees 2,50,000. So posting of this is also done in equity shareholders account. See, all of you can see all the closing entries are done. We studied 6 closing entries yesterday, but we don't have the closing entry of preference share capital in this question because only equity shares are there. And we also don't have any closing entry of accumulated losses, fictitious assets. So if here profit and loss account 2,50,000 was a negative amount, debit balance, negative amount, then we would have passed the 6th closing entry. Equity shareholders account debit, they'll bear the loss to profit and loss account. Or if on the asset side, in non-current assets, we had discount on debentures, underwriting commission, preliminary expenses, then for that we would have passed the closing entry, equity shareholders account debit to underwriting commission to profit and loss, etc. But here we don't have preference share capital and we don't have other non-current assets and accumulated losses. So 2 closing entries don't come over here. Okay. So all of you can see so easily out of 6, 4 closing entries we have passed, 2 are not there. Now, if you all remember, I told you yesterday, after passing the 6 closing entries, remaining 6 entries you remember in 2 parts. How are you supposed to remember those 2 entries I told you? First, you remember receiving the money. Second, you remember making the payments. Very easy trick I have already given you to remember this yesterday. Now, receiving the money can be done with 3 different entries: purchase consideration due, purchase consideration received, and the sale of assets which are not taken over. First, purchase consideration due will pass the entry. Okay, all of you can see over here, we have already marked it. For X Limited, the purchase consideration is 20 lakhs. So with this 20 lakhs, we have to pass the entry. Okay. With this amount of 20 lakhs, we have to pass the entries in the books of X Limited. So let's do that. What is the entry? Amount is receivable. I repeat, amount is receivable from XY Limited, transferee company. Debit the receivable. So XY Limited account debit. Okay, XY Limited account debit, and with the amount of purchase consideration of 20 lakh rupees. Right now we are passing the entry in the books of X Limited. For X Limited, what is the purchase consideration decided? 20 lakhs. And purchase consideration is an income. Credit all incomes and gains. So to realization account with the amount of 20 lakhs. Okay, this entry will be passed. Now XY Limited account debit to realization. To realization. So in realization account, we'll show it on the credit side by XY Limited account with the purchase consideration of 20 lakhs. Okay, and XY Limited account we have debited. So in XY Limited account also we will do the posting on the debit side. Opposite account to realization account with the amount of 20 lakhs. Okay, so posting of this entry is done. Then after purchase consideration due, now the entry to be passed is for purchase consideration received. Now, how are we going to receive this amount of 20 lakhs? Okay, how are we going to receive this amount of 20 lakhs? Over here, you all can see it is given that entire amount. Okay, this I highlighted over here. I repeat it again. I highlighted again. Entire amount will be paid in the form of equity shares. Entire 20 lakhs will be paid in the form of equity shares. So what will be the entry for receiving the purchase consideration? Equity shares comes in. Debit what comes in? So equity shares of XY Limited account debit. Okay, I repeat, equity shares comes in, debit what comes in? Equity shares of XY Limited account debit with rupees 20 lakhs. And XY Limited is the giver, credit the giver to XY Limited account with 20 lakhs. Okay. Now, equity shares of XY Limited and 2XY Limited. First of all, 2XY Limited means in XY Limited account will write on the credit side by equity shares of XY Limited account with rupees 20 lakhs. So you all can see over here, XY Limited account also squared up, gets closed, settled. And I told you yesterday also that in these two entries itself, XY Limited or transferee company's account will get closed. And equity shares of XY Limited account debit. So in equity shares of XY Limited account will write on the debit side to XY Limited account with the amount of 20 lakhs. Okay. So this is done. I told you 3 entries to be passed. Okay. For receiving the money. 2 entries of purchase consideration are done. Third is sale of assets. But which assets will be sold? Those assets will be sold which are not taken over. Now over here, all the assets are taken over when we say X Limited goes into liquidation, Y Limited goes into liquidation, form XY Limited, means all assets of X Limited and Y Limited are going to be part of the assets of XY Limited new company. So over here, none of the assets are there which are not taken over by XY Limited, and X Limited itself has to sell it. All assets have been taken over. So this entry, okay, third entry of receiving the money, sale of assets not taken over by transferee company will not come in this particular question. Exclusively, I told you yesterday, furniture was useless. Vodafone will sell it. If there is any such item, furniture, plant and machinery, which is not taken over by XY Limited, then we would have passed the entry for selling the same. So second part is also done. 3 entries for receiving the money are done. Here we have only 2 entries. Sale of assets is not there. Then we have to pass 3 entries for payment. Now, as I said to you, this question was very easy. None of the 3 entries we have in this particular question for payment. For example, payment of liquidation expenses we do have, but those expenses of amalgamation are borne by which company? XY Limited. So XY Limited will pass the entry. In the books of X Limited, no entries to be passed for this liquidation expenses. As such, you all can see only one amount is given, 17,500. So is it the amount of X Limited or Y Limited? Is the amount of XY Limited for forming the new company. They are not actually the liquidation expenses. Then payment of liability is not taken over. Now here there is only one liability, you all can see. There is only one liability, creditors, and they have been taken over. Entire company is merging. So I told you all assets and liabilities have been taken over. And third, payment to preference shareholders, that also we don't have here. In this question, preference share capital itself is not there. So any payment to preference shareholder does not arise. Means in this particular question, any of the entries of payment are not there. So we are done with the third part of entries as well. Now, I told you in last 2 entries, you need not remember the entries, just do the balancing. Okay, so 6 plus 6, 12 entries are done. In this question, out of 12 entries, we have only 6 entries. 6 entries are not there. Which 6 entries are not there? Preference shares capital entry is not there. Fictitious assets accumulated entries is not there. Sale of assets is not there. And all the 3 entries of payment, liquidation expenses, liabilities, and preference shareholders payment is not there. 6 entries are not covered in this particular question. Realization account, whatever balance remains, I told you yesterday, simply transfer it to equity shareholders account on the opposite side. Okay, entire amount of profit will be taken by equity shareholders or loss will be borne by equity shareholders. So all of you can see credit side is 3 lakhs. See here, credit side total is 3 lakhs plus 20, 23 lakhs. Whereas debit side total is 297, 150, 160, 850, 350, 150. We already had this amount over here. That was 30 lakh 57,000. So obviously debit side total is more, right? So debit side total we will record first 30 lakh 57,000. You can see that. Okay, 1, 2, 10, 13, 14, 14, 50, 15, 15, 50. Okay, plant and machinery is 12 lakh 57,000. Here I have done one mistake. Please make the correction. Not 1 lakh 50,000. It is 12 lakh 50,000. Now it will match. 12, 14, 15, 23, 26, 27, 28, 29, 10, 29, 60, 30 lakh 57,000. Right, 30 lakh 57,000 on both the sides. And 30 lakh 57,000 minus 23 lakhs. 30 lakh 57,000 minus 23 lakhs. So 7 lakh 57,000 of balance will remain on the credit side. Okay, 30 lakh 57,000 minus 23 lakhs. Balance of 7 lakh 57,000 will be transferred to equity shareholders account. They will bear this amount of loss. This is the amount of loss which will be borne by equity shareholders. Further, in equity shareholders, you'll transfer on the opposite side, debit side, to realization account the amount of 7 lakh 57,000. They will bear this loss. Okay. Now, what journal entry to be passed you can derive from the ledger account. Understand this properly. See, in equity shareholders account, this entry is on the debit side. So you write in the journal entry equity shareholders account debit. Since in equity shareholders account this entry is on the debit side, we will write equity shareholders account debit. Okay. And since in realization account this entry is on the credit side, we'll write to realization account. So you can derive the journal entry from this ledger and posting itself. No need to remember the entry separately. What is it for profit? What is it for loss? This technique you can use. In realization account, if the balance remains on debit side, then in the journal entry realization account debit. And you'll transfer that to equity shareholders on credit side. So to equity shareholders account. And here in equity shareholders, it comes on the debit side. So equity shareholders account debit. And realization, the balance remains on credit side. So to realization account. Okay. The journal entry for this will be, write down, equity shareholders account debit, okay, with 7 lakh 57,000. Yes, 7 lakh 57,000 and to realization account with 7 lakh 57,000. So this entry is also done. Balance of realization account loss is transferred to equity shareholders account. Then last step, what did I tell you? Whichever accounts remain, those balances you transfer to equity shareholders account. Let's see. Here equity shareholders realization account is already getting closed. Cash and bank account is also closed. So just write the total 1,50,000 on both the sides. Then you all can see equity shares balance is remaining. Who will get this equity shares? Equity shareholders will get it. So this equity shares by equity shareholders account. You'll transfer this amount of 20 lakhs. And in equity shareholders, you'll write on the debit side, opposite side, to equity shares of XY Limited account, 20 lakhs. This is how you remember whichever remaining ledger accounts are there in other complicated questions also. At the end, all those accounts you close and transfer to equity shareholders account. Whatever is left out in the transferor company will all be given to the equity shareholders. Here only equity shares of 20 lakhs are left out. Cash is not left out because it is taken over by the new company. So that equity shares of 20 lakhs will be handed over to equity shareholders. So now what happens? Equity shares account also squared up, it gets closed. 20 lakhs total on both the sides. And XY Limited account is already getting closed with rupees 20 lakhs in the two entries of purchase consideration itself. So this is also a squared up account. No other balance remains. Okay. And finally, what should happen is even equity shareholders account must get closed. All accounts must get closed and squared up. See, debit side total of equity shareholders, you all can see 7,57,000 plus 20 lakhs. That is 27,57,000. And see on the credit side, 17,50,000 plus 1,57,000, that is equal to 19,07,000 plus 6 lakhs, that is equal to 25,07,000 plus 2,50,000 equals to 27,57,000. So this account also gets closed. Credit side we will get 27,57,000. All accounts get closed. Last journal entry we will pass in the books of X Limited for the payment to equity shareholders. Equity shareholders are the receiver. Debit the receiver. Equity shareholders account debit. And what are we giving them? Lastly, this shares of 20 lakhs. Okay. So amount will be 20 lakhs. What we are paying to them at the end is 20 lakhs. And sorry. Equity shares goes out, credit what goes out to equity shares of XY Limited account with the amount of 20 lakhs. So all the entries are passed in the books of X Limited, as well as we have made all the ledger accounts, and all the ledger accounts get closed. But what you are asked is journal entries in the books of X Limited and Y Limited. Exactly same manner. Now what you all people do is pass journal entries in the books of Y Limited on your own. I will share this solution tomorrow. You all can verify whether you have done it correct or not. Meanwhile, if you want, you can take a screenshot of this. Okay, I'll be downloading the PDF copy of the same obviously, but you all can still take screenshot of this question, so it will help you in solving at that point of time the question in the books of Y Limited. Okay, I hope the things are visible on the screen. You can take screenshot. Take the screenshot of this question. So in the books of Y Limited, you all can try the entries on your own. I'll send the link. I'll put the link in the description box by tomorrow. So you all can check whether you have done it correct or not. Now, tomorrow again we are going to meet. कल रात को 10 बजे हम वापस मिलेंगे. And tomorrow evening 10 o'clock we will meet with what agenda? Today I have taught you the question how to pass the entries in the books of transferor company. Tomorrow evening 10 o'clock I am going to teach you various methods of purchase consideration. And students mind well, बच्चों ध्यान से सुनो, जो परचेस कंसिडरेशन है वो कंपल्सरीली आपको ये चैप्टर से प्रिपेयर करना ही पड़ेगा. इवन इफ यू लीव दिस चैप्टर इन ऑप्शन एंड गोइंग फॉर इंटरनल रिकंस्ट्रक्शन, आप लोग मेरा वो वीडियो देखिएगा, नीचे डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में दिया हुआ है. अगर आप वो वीडियो पे जाएंगे तो यू विल सी इन क्वेश्चन 1 they always ask a question from amalgamation only, and 99% times they ask question how to find purchase consideration. So tomorrow entire session of this live revision will be based on methods of purchase consideration, and we will solve few questions, again exam questions only, university paper set questions only, on finding the amount of purchase consideration. So friends, will see you again tomorrow in the evening. I hope we are able to serve you better. Okay, bye everyone, take care and study well.